Nav. Bum bum bum.
Who's this that's introing?
A legend.
My buddy, I went to high school with from Freeburg here, who still lives nearby in Edwardsville. And he was around Newman at U of I, not super around, but pretty around. And obviously went to U of I as well there. And so Ross met him there or saw him around. Landon, I forget, just business event stuff at U of I.
Tim Miller, if the U of I still had its cherished tradition of naming a homecoming king and queen of all of campus, he would have been the king of Illinois for our graduating year. First of all,
yeah,
interesting.
Right.
Okay.
Secondly, friend of a friend, last minute, hey, we graduate in 2 weeks. Let's buy a plane ticket to Europe. And so we traveled the old country together for about 5 days. Prior to that, I only knew of the esteemed Tim Miller. And then we were sitting at the top of the Guinness Brewery in Dublin, knocking back Guinnesses.
Tim was a parishioner of Rob's as well. So everyone's a buddy with him except you, Matt.
3-1, baby.
Bummer.
Can't wait for our camping trip. Very excited.
Oh, yeah.
Good old Leroy.
Right? Isn't that the nearest town?
Leroy Jenkins.
I forgot about that video. That was a classic.
Yeah, me too.
Back in the day.
back when viral YouTube videos were just innocent play, innocent fun.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay. Ross, Matt knows how we all know Tim now, and Tim is waiting. Tim, welcome to the Speech Guys. You know everyone here except Matt.
Good to see you, Tim.
That's right. Yeah.
Matt,
meet you, Matt.
Yeah.
Tim.
I heard you're a big deal. That's what Landon.
Well, what I said was, if
I don't know if I believe him.
If the U of I still honored its homecoming king and queens, Tim would have been homecoming king of U of I for our year. For sure, hands down. That was group consensus.
And you were homecoming king at least once, right? Or prom king once?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, I think junior year prom.
Nice. Don't worry, just be casual right now, Tim. Stay loose. You know, this banter will cut out. You know how it goes. You know, we'll
He always says that and he never cuts it out.
Just
he
relax.
doesn't edit anything.
Just be...
Yeah, no kidding.
Tim, can we announce to the world your announcement?
Sure, that's fine.
Why don't you say it to the Speech Guys audience?
I'm my wife Caitlin and I are expecting a baby girl here in July. So the first time parents were pretty excited. We
just
had some ultrasounds today. Got to see all the fingers and toes and
congratulations. Great to hear.
Yeah.
Thank
you, dude. It's awesome.
The first Speech Guys baby who will have been there their whole life. Nope. Okay, well, let's cut the business, Tim. So Tim, of course, ran cross country and track with me at Freeburg Midgets High School. Our mascot is under attack lately. I don't know if you're following the news. I did call into KMOX to express my grief over this. Tim was 1 year old younger than me. He still is, but served as co-captain of the cross country team. So we sort of had to work together to cultivate a certain spirit of leadership that we'll be discussing today with respect to Bill Bowerman and other things like Pavo. I made some notes on Pavo as well. Tim, what do you sort of remember about sort of the leadership side of cross country track? Any memorable speeches, either from me or from our coach, Mr. Wiseman, or just anyone? Just pretty broad category to respond to there.
Yeah, wow. Lots of memorable speeches, but honestly, so many, like, oftentimes it was you're doing stride outs, you're running, you're kind of pumped up. Everyone huddles up, something like someone says something really great, and then you get to the starting line and then you grind it out for 3 miles. And so I don't know that I have a speech that is like lingering in my head from those. I mean, Coach Wiseman was a wise man, as his last name implies, and he had a lot of really interesting things to say. So no, I guess I don't have any memorable speeches, mostly from these movies that we watched on repeat.
Yeah, so we did. Well, when I say we loosely. Me watched Without Limits and its little brother, or older brother, I suppose, Prefontaine, those films before every single cross country track meet in high school. So
Just
that
you or
amounts to
Tim did
several
too?
dozen times. Just me.
Well,
Sometimes it was a
gotcha.
whole team affair. Yeah, I'd strap them down.
I think I did. I think I watched Without Limits 2 or 3 times. Prefontaine I watched a couple more times, but it might surprise you guys to learn this, but Mike is sort of a man of habit and routine. Um, he had a pretty we would often ride the bus together, and he had a lot of rituals. It was, he had his 2 nights before the race meal, and then he would watch Prefontaine, and then
Yeah, that's right.
the night before he would have his pre-race meal, and then he would watch Without Limits.
Right. Yep.
And then 2 hours before the race, he would have a bagel and a banana.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very regimented, and
they
knew exactly what to expect.
I'm surprised you memorized all that. That's great. I mean,
He could have made it all
bagel
up, but we
bananas good.
totally believe him. We're like, yes, that's true.
Yeah.
No,
that's exactly what happened.
No, that was an accurate account of things. I will add a couple things. One, also a frost blue Gatorade with that bagel and banana. That's the one thing that I still do is the frost blue Gatorade. Yeah, and then also I would read texts from the quotable runner little book on the way to the cross country track meets. Well,
Tim, did you have any sort of pre-race rituals?
Kind of. I mean, I would normally probably drink a Gatorade and listen to some music to get pumped up. But I joined in on Mike's running pre-race rituals of, we would go walk the course and we'd run certain parts of it, and there's some stretching involved.
Yeah, it was,
not
1
quite.
mile, run the first mile, walk the second, and then run the last half mile after we stretched.
Who was faster in high school?
Well, that's kind of a longer story. So,
oh, now we go.
Here we go. The short answer is Mike by a long shot, but it didn't start out that way. And you see, he sort of had this, I'll say, almost like a Rudy type story where, he was a bit of an underdog. I came in and I was faster my freshman year, first semester, his sophomore year, and he was sort of inspired. He started cutting weight, hitting the gym a little bit more, and then by spring, his sophomore year, my freshman year, he started beating me in some races, and by that following year, he was a beast. He was unstoppable.
Yeah. Although Tim did beat me one race my senior year, his junior year. Do you have anything else fun to say before we send you away after you introduce the episode? Any maybe final thoughts on Bowerman? Great coaches in general.
Sure. I could talk about Bowerman. I mean, I don't know if he's quite the household name that, like a John Wooden is, but for people in the running community, Bowerman is like a John Wooden. He was a guy that was sort of a sage. He talked, people listened. He built this Oregon track and cross country program into like the dream destination for runners around the world. And so it was pretty instrumental in starting, Nike and a lot of experimentation in track surface and shoes. He helped shape, some of the best runners that the U.S. has ever had. So That's part of what makes this movie and this speech pretty cool is he was sort of a guy that people follow and a guy that inspired people.
Couldn't have said it better myself, but I'm going to.
I'll introduce tonight's episode. We have the absurdity of running with the speech guys, Pat, Ross, Landon, and Mike.
Okay. That's great. Bowerman gave the speech too, of course.
Oh, Bill Bowerman, Men of Oregon. Yes.
And with that, hey, let's cue the music. That was good.
When you see the road,
Michael Schaefer, Ross Johnson, Matt Schultz, and Landon Fry are all here.
free. Perspective. I've been back and
I'm just going to say it. I've been thinking it for 10 minutes. I don't want a podcast scared.
Oh, yeah.
ashes. Now I've seen the road.
Pregnancy is a beautiful thing. Pregnancy is a gift.
Shit. Oh, there are stories to tell.
What kind of paint sticks to asteroids? Like, if you don't prime your walls.
Afraid some days, but the road will lead us to a better place.
We are called to emerge from that default setting of self-involvement.
Okay, we're back. Thank you, Tim, for that great introduction. We're going to go ahead and take a listen to two speeches. The first one being the most on theme that Coach Bowerman gave at the start of cross country and track seasons to his Oregon Ducks. And then directly follow up immediately. Doesn't admittedly fall into the speeches at the start of something, but certainly falls under the same umbrella spirit as that running and absurd pastime, which is the speech that he gave at Steve Prefontaine's funeral, tragically, in 1975, that we'll call To Test the Limits of the Human Heart. So with that, let's take a listen. Here's to you.
Men of Oregon, I invite you to become students of your events. Running, one might say, is basically an absurd pastime upon which to be exhausting ourselves. But if you can find meaning in the kind of running you have to do to stay on this team, chances are you'll be able to find meaning in another absurd pastime. All of my life, man and boy, I've operated under the assumption that the main idea in running was to win the damn race. Actually, when I became a coach, I tried to teach people how to do that. I tried to teach Pre how to do that. Tried like hell to teach Pre to do that. And Pre taught me. Taught me I was wrong. Pre, you see, was troubled by knowing that a mediocre effort can win a race, and a magnificent effort can lose one. Winning a race wouldn't necessarily demand that he give it everything he had from start to finish. He never ran any other way. I tried to get him to. God knows I tried. But Pre was stubborn. He insisted on holding himself to a higher standard than victory. A race is a work of art. That's what he said. That's what he believed. And he was out to make it one every step of the way. Of course, he wanted to win. Those who saw him compete and Those who competed against him were never in any doubt about how much he wanted to win. But how he won mattered to him more. Pre thought I was a hard case. But he finally got it through my head that the real purpose of running isn't to win a race. It's to test the limits of the human heart. And that he did. Nobody did it more often. Nobody did it better.
Okay, those were the speeches. With our new format, I'll go ahead and read my monologue of why I picked the speech. My sister, brother, and I lived in a home of heroes. Michael Jordan, Marty McFly, Indiana Jones, and Rocky Balboa occupied oversized, dramatic spaces in my mind and heart, and my brothers and sisters, for their integrity and boldness in the face of unfavorable odds. In the late 90s and early 2000s, when Lauren and Dan and my dad started running, we became familiar with the cult and culture of Steve Prefontaine and Bill Bowerman, his head distance coach at the University of Oregon, and later the co-founder of Nike. To explain the particular effect running had on our interior lives and outlook, a paragraph from my yet unpublished novel entitled Under the Ozark Stars may do it the most adequate justice. And this is that paragraph. As part of a team in volleyball or basketball, Mel Davis hated how her own best effort might not result in a win. There were rules and technicalities and strategies to consider. Running was pure guts. It felt wild, dangerous, and uncomfortable compared to so much of the rest of 1980s America that seemed to spend most of its time waiting in fast food drive-thrus, shopping for the latest new piece of plastic, and steadily paving over more and more of its natural landscape. So that's the end of that excerpt there. Mel goes on to win her 7th grade class's timed mile in PE and embarks on another adventure inspired by the spiritual insights influenced by her run. The speech that we just heard a few moments ago that Bowerman gives at the start of each cross-country season speaks to this mood felt by my story's main character, 13-year-old Mel. Running is different from other sports, as success is earned principally by developing an athlete's set of interior tools, hard and painfully earned through raw environmental and physiological exposure. To access this space of quiet strength daily, often for years, requires something of a spiritual guru, teacher, coach like Bowerman. Distance running certainly has its own favorite sins: physical vanity, doping, eating disorders, and obsession with the clock. But if we had more coaches like Bowerman in any athletic discipline at any level, I think that there would be less harmful pride in sports, fewer belligerent parents on the sidelines, and more adults who look back on their youth teams with a sense of satisfaction rather than burnout. And so, in considering this speech, the persons of Bowerman and his most successful athletes like Steve Prefontaine and the legacy of Nike, we might more clearly discern how we can help get ourselves and the young athletes we love to success. Quote, in that other absurd pastime, life. Okay, first reactions from the speech, from the film in which it was a part, Without Limits, or anything that sticks out in my monologue there.
Yeah, I love the absurd pastime. Yeah, I just love the description. And they kind of circle back on the theme later in the movie. Or actually, I can't remember how close in proximity, but about the haircut length and different means they use to decide on that. I'll save that for the movie. But But yeah, it's just kind of a funny meditation on some of the absurdities of, I guess, any sport, right? It's like, why does a baseball need to be 9 inches in circumference? You know, why is a basketball hoop 10 feet? You know, why not plus or minus a little? You know, so there's always these little kind of absurdities in sports that I think give it to some degree of charm. But also, I think they kind of bookend. Yeah, I guess just when, especially the part at the end, you know, about the absurdity of life and kind of making meaning of that, kind of bookends that, I think, just a few different aspects of absurd pastimes that I'm sure we'll get more into later. But yeah, I think it's just a meaningful meditation on that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I hadn't read these notes and I just started watching the movie. It's a pretty good line, so I think that makes it obvious that it is the speech that you chose. I thought because it was a short delivery to the kids right off the bat, I wasn't sure if this was the speech, but memorable quote, and it gets you being a runner in that cross country setting. I think it resonated in the difficulty of just running every day, and that, like, it's the hardest part of any sports practice. And the fact that Bowerman tied it to grinding through the harder parts of life, and then unpacking that theme throughout the movie was resonant. I think it makes for a good story, probably contributes to the legend of Prefontaine. Bowerman was depicted. I think I've read the book Shoe Dog, which Phil Knight wrote, and it's probably the most popular business book in the last 5 to 10 years. I thought maybe Bowerman was a little bit more of the old school, super masculine, hard-nosed coach, but he's got like this air of an Oregon or a Portland vibe, like, don't call me coach because, you know, I have someone in my life that was just like a, you know, hard-nosed jerk or whatever. And I think that he both was challenging to run for, but also seemed to listen to all of the pushback his athletes had especially to maybe a better way of doing things. So he was represented there well there. I don't know if I would have painted him in that exact light, having just heard a lot about him. So seemed like a leader that is, yeah, worth exploring, and we can talk about what sorts of coaches we've had in our life that mirror him.
As a brief aside on Phil Knight and Bowerman's relationship when they were at Oregon, I believe there's a book written by a runner named Kenny Moore who was portrayed in the film there, sort of one of the older guys and assistant coaches on the team when Pre was running. But the book that Moore wrote is called Bowerman, the Men of Oregon. And obviously Nike is sort of secondary to that story there. But in the story, Phil Knight, I think, was referred to as what was called a hamburger runner, according to Bowerman. Those were his words. And those were the people who, and it wasn't meant to be derogatory, but it was to indicate and inform a particular purpose towards that runner on a team. And they were never going to set a world record or NCAA record. You know, in their small town, they were certainly the hot shot that everyone was going to talk about for 15 or 20 years. But at Oregon, you know, he was the guy who would maybe score 1 or 2 points a year in track, but was really just out there to do his absolute best. And in doing his best in running would inform other great ventures. In Phil's case, Nike.
My first reaction to the speech movie, I liked the movie. It was kind of a fun, 70s take, and maybe it's just my familiarity with 90s things that just made it feel at home. But um, I don't know. One thing which maybe we can get into it a little bit, and maybe I'm projecting a little bit, like from your monologue and such with Mel and how running makes you free and all of that stuff. And I feel like I'm kind of putting that on Bowerman's coaching personality, but at least in the movie, like he was the technical. Like you gotta slow down here so you have more later. And Pre embodied much more that free spirited type of running. So um yeah, but I'm sure we'll talk maybe a little bit more about that later. But that was kind of just my first reaction. Was it kind of seemed romantic, but then as the movie played out, I feel like he didn't seem to do that, at least until the end.
So, to help emphasize the significance of this speech in relation to speeches at the start of something, Ross, you gave the great example, of course, in the Speeches by Dad series, Act Like You've Been There Before, and how that speech very early on in your running or football career sort of informed. It's just this well-placed speech at the start of something that informed everything that came after it. As was the purpose of Bowerman's speech at the start of these respective running seasons. Anyone else have any speeches either from a teammate or parent or coach at the start of some kind of sports season? And maybe while you're at it, running, as I keep bragging about, is just so special. Sort of link in there, like the distinction of your sports from that of running, commonalities, differences. I don't know. You don't have to, but it could be a good moment to do that.
I did do cross country as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were fast.
No, my brothers were fast. I participated. And
you were a hamburger runner.
You
what?
You ran 12 minutes for like 2 miles in 7th grade cross country.
Yes, that was my
yeah. That would have been my like 1 mile time in 7th grade.
So my dad made us start cross country in 7th grade. Like you have to do it to play basketball, just like a family sports rule. I didn't want to run at all. Show up to practice. It was the second year of our coach's season. Maybe we'll get into this later. He was the janitor at our school, the new janitor.
Oh man, I remember this now. Yeah.
Tell me to go longer if we can say this for another part. The janitor, the team got 6th the prior year in state. And so like first day of practice, I'd never run more than a lap around a track. I was like, I don't want to run at all, like let alone like 3 laps around the school. Like that sounds awful. And he gathers up. Like I remember the trophy ceremonies of 6th graders. Like, oh, like it's a pretty good team. I didn't know who this guy was. I knew he was the janitor. I guess he had just spent 20 years in the Navy, but he circled us all up. We were about to do warm-ups and he's like, you guys can win state this year. And he had this big long beard and kind of longer hair. And he's like, you guys can win state. We'll get really close. If you do win state, you can shave off all of my beard and all of my hair in front of the whole school. And so like we literally shook his hand the first day of practice before it started. And yeah, that couple other decent speeches, but that was a dramatic first entry into an entire sport.
I mean, I think you should tell the complete story of your coach here so that we don't.
So we fast forward a couple other quotes, and he was a good student. I think he had spent 20 years in the Navy. He was a really good wrestler in high school, returned home, got a job as the janitor at the school. He was 40. He looked like he was 55. Just, I don't know if he smoked a lot of cigarettes, just looked like an older man. I think he gained like the trust of the principal. It's like, all right, yeah, you can coach kids, and nobody wants to coach cross country, so you can. Got sick second year. We had a couple fast runners. He, he's a good reader. I think he studied a lot because he knew every single motivational quote that we would all find banal and like his platitudes now, but he was able to just spew those out in the middle of practice, like pre-internet. And it's like, you are the most motivational person because none of this is like common language yet. And so I think he kept those rolling. We ended up, long story longer, we tied for first to win state. I was our sixth runner. So the tie went to me, and their team beat me by, 30 seconds. So,
oh man,
he let us shave, I think, everything but his mustache in front of the school the next morning. We basically got as close as you possibly could to winning state without actually winning it.
Right.
Quickly, because the story's mostly about him. The next year, literally like half the school went out for cross country. Like, even if you couldn't run a mile in 20 minutes, you showed up, and I think they ordered like 40 new uniforms because like everybody wanted to be a part of the team. He went on to pick up middle school volleyball, track. He won state, 3 different sports, 4 or 5 different ways. Like, just probably like the most winningest coach in our school. And he still kept his day job was the janitor. And pretty cool dude.
Dang. What's
I've
his
watched
name?
that movie.
Can we know his name?
Jimmy Newell.
Jimmy Newell. Coach Newell. Did you guys call him Coach Newell?
We called him Jimmy because the janitor, I guess, doesn't require the
Jimmy it is.
I thought the janitor, Mr. Newell, passed away though.
He did pass during COVID. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I remembered a more Disney version of that story. Like, he died be at the end of your cross country season, and you had to win it for Jimmy.
Not quite that dramatic. Yeah.
The movie's based on a true story.
I really don't know that I remember a speech to start a season. I know, I think it was my junior year of football. I just remember the coach throwing around like, someone has to go to state. Why not us? And I think I think that was to combat. There was a team kind of on the other side of town. So Naperville North, that I believe had won state the year prior, but either way was like, everyone was talking about them as like shoo-ins to win state. And that was actually our first game of the year, was against Naperville North that year. So I think I remember him throwing that around, and just kind of that idea percolating in my head, like, shoot, we could win state, and we did have a really good team. We lost to Naperville North in our first game of the year, actually got destroyed. And that was a memorable practice, memorable film session and practice, just in the aftermath of that. But we finished, we won every game for the rest of the regular season.
Wow.
And so we were 8-1. We were like the number 2 seed, but got upset in a close game in the first round of the playoffs. But,
oh my gosh. Jeez.
Yeah, it was rough. And it was kind of like Friday Night Lights, because I want to say the plot of that movie was like the star running back gets hurt, but then the backup steps up and carries the team or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm mixing it up with a different movie, but we had a guy who had a full ride to NIU. And he was like in the top, like he was a state, 100-meter dash contender as well, like really, really good at football and track. Alan Smith was his name. I want to say he had torn his ACL like the year prior, and he was coming back, and he was like, this dude was scary. Like, he was in good shape. Like, I remember trying to tackle him in practice, and it was just a disaster. But anyway, he got hurt like in the second game of the year, first or second game of the year, something like that, and tore his ACL, which the NIU coach honored his scholarship still, which I thought was a generous thing.
Wow.
But the
Was
backup
he able to play eventually at NIU?
he might have a little bit, but nothing. No,
Oh, wow.
nothing significant. I don't think. He was never like a starter that I recall, but
yeah.
But the backup, his name's Anton Wilkins. That dude. So he was in my class. So he was a junior. He was. It was kind of like he was like the lightning. The other guy was more the thunder. Like kind of style of running back. But he was an all-star, carried the team. Kind of the central point of our offense. But anyway, long story short, I guess that was kind of the speech to, maybe not a speech, but the mantra to start the year.
Guys can win state. I mean, it actually does go well with the speech of just how brief it is and just how really brief words of encouragement can be the difference. As Tim and I referenced, our coach's name in cross country track was Mr. Wiseman. He'd been there for quite a few years. He retired when I graduated high school. So my older brother and older sister both had him. And, he was very talented, capable of a coach for sure. We won the Kokia Conference track championship 14 straight times. And we were certainly one of the better teams in the area, but we in cross country. But we were never, there was no like dynasty as there are with other coaches. The point that I'm getting at is I don't necessarily remember any words from him. But Tim and I and a few other teammates did attend a running camp called Paavo, which was named after a Finnish runner named Paavo Nurmi from the 1940s or 50s, who was one of the best runners in the world at the time. And Paavo just prided himself, and it worked for him at the time. It'd probably a little bit raise your eyebrows today at it from what we understand about physiology. But he just ran hard all the time, and he thought hard. He thought hard in the sense of just like really cultivating this interior state of just always finding that hard edge, and that was reflected in the Paavo running program. Just to describe the Paavo running program for you, so you can get sort of a sense. There were a handful of different ones across the United States, but the one that Tim and I and our team attended was at St. Joe State Park in Missouri. Just a very nondescript state park. Missouri has a lot of great state parks, but St. Joe State Park, it's fine. But it's nothing. It's maintained as more of a site for ATV use than enjoying Missouri's great natural wonders. But there would be your morning, your AM run of, depending upon where you're at, 1, 2, 3, or 4 miles.
You didn't do an easy 10?
And then you would help cook breakfast in these like massive cast iron skillets. And then you'd have to clean everything. And then you would sit down, and this is all just like under a pavilion at the campground. You would sit down for talks for probably about 2 hours from different Paavo modeled coaches. Then at lunch, the higher level runners, myself, my senior year in the year after high school, you would do what was called the prediction run. So it was like 1.5 miles, and you would say something like, I'm going to try to run this 1.5 miles in 10 minutes and 57 seconds. So not necessarily a fast time, but you're just trying to dial in pace. And so whoever got the closest would win Cracker Jacks for the prediction run at lunchtime. And then you would eat lunch. and clean up, of course, and then listen to more talks. And then afternoon was your hard workout for the day. So it might be a timed mile all out. It might be hill repeats called enduros. It might have been a sort of relay race where each person ran like 5 to 6 miles, stuff like that. And then the evening, I think a little bit of talks and just jacking around and sleeping in tents all week. But I remember something that Coach Weinheimer told me, I think after my second year being there. So it was the summer going into my senior year of high school. But I remember, and it's actually right here on my bulletin board because I wrote it down with a few other quotes, but it's typed up there on my, I typed it up probably 12 or 13 years ago now. But he said to me, he shook my hand at the end of the camp and he looked me in the eye and he said, "You will achieve your goals." Yeah, and that just always struck me, right? Something really brief, sincere, conducted or accompanied with this genuine physical contact. And even though I didn't achieve every running goal I wanted in high school, like I still never forgot that. And I do still think about that just anytime. Not all the time, but just anytime I'm enduring some sort of hardship, test of endurance that I'm uncertain that I'm capable of working through. In high school, I had mentioned that little quotable runner book that I would read from before the bus, and before every cross country meet. I'm a little disappointed Tim didn't remember, but after, because you have the start line in cross country in high school, what you have are these boxes. Depending on how, there's no standard to it, but depending upon how big the meet is, your box might be wide enough to accompany 3 runners or 2 runners, and then everyone stacks behind you. But anyway, you do your strides, your run outs before the meet, and before the start of a race, I would give the guys a quote to think about. And I do remember it was actually a quote that I made up or came up with before our last cross country meet ever. Before my last cross country meet ever. And it was, "You don't have to be bulletproof. You just have to be able to take the bullets." But anyway, bottom line, brief quotes, speeches have always been important to me, been receptive to them. Mr. Wiseman did not have any, but Coach Weinheimer from Pava did.
I mean, that's a good point as a just overall take. What struck me about the movie is like, oh, that's a really good one line framework. It's not a speech, but it's just a mentality. You said yours were one line. The one line that Jimmy did have was, "Pain is temporary, pride is forever." Just like get through it, and you'll be proud that you did. Maybe that's all you can actually convey in a in a good motivational pep talk.
So, what is the role of absurd pastimes? There's a little bit of back and forth in the outline of the pure utility of exercise versus the nonsense of it. Is there any virtue in the nonsense of not just running and not even just athletics, but just any hobby in general, particularly when you have real responsibilities, as I understand them, also known as kids?
Yeah. Could you, because we're still talking about
If we
running,
don't have-
could you still like even reframe that as like, what is the value of sport in general? Or you're switching purely to hobbies?
No, I mean, I think in this case, I don't think there's any gradation necessary. I mean, I think you can treat this as just hobbies in general. Because I think that, the way Bowerman is speaking of it here, I think it has that quality or that nature to it.
Yeah, I think I mean, I think pastime is a pretty broad, I mean, that would cover, I mean, anything from running to collecting antique radios or something. But I think there's some commonality in that, like, they're enjoyable activities. They aren't strictly necessary for the function of your life. But they give life and spice to kind of your day to day or week to week. I think on a deeper level, a good pastime should tap into some level of the human person that's otherwise not tapped into readily. I guess, like, maybe using Bowerman's words, like, should tap into the limits of the human heart, right, in some way, shape, or form. I guess if we're talking like antique radios, I mean, I suppose you could do that in a way where it's, you're just a weird old guy in your basement. And that's probably not the best way to do that hobby. Or you could do it as a way where you're kind of passing on skills from one generation to another, or you're kind of contemplating the timeless nature of kind of broadcasting things. So yeah, I feel like there's ways to do all that. But I guess with physical pastimes in particular, I mean, we're all embodied. We're all limited by our bodies. Testing and expanding those limits is in some ways essential for our bodies to thrive, but we're kind of bordering on utility there, I guess. But I mean, running certainly is not essential for our bodies, or any one particular thing, right? Weightlifting, running, golf, whatever. Like, none of it's strictly necessary in and of itself, but like, you need something, right? You need something for your body to thrive. And I think it's a prime avenue for our souls to thrive. You can learn about yourself, others, what's going on in the depths of your heart, especially when you compete and push yourself. You're kind of on a razor's edge a little bit, and you get pricked, either your ego or whatever else. There's a lot of good fodder for prayer and that sort of stuff, consolations, desolations, failure, performance failure, and moral failure at times, friendships. I mean, I think there's depth, and I mean, I think a level of absurdity, right? Running just to exhaust yourself would have been unthought of in, most of human history. Like, why would you do that?
Apparently Jefferson
like,
did it.
insofar as
Really?
Yeah, I had to
Did he really?
say, like, I mean, I guess the Greeks, but in Jefferson's journals, I'm pretty sure, well, his journals via a biography I read, pretty sure he had an emphasis or a kind of a sharing teaching that he would just like go outside, and so at some point during the midday, he would just like sprint a half a mile away and like sprint back. And it wasn't even like I don't know if they even had a word for running or like do this athletic, but I'm sure that running is a word. But
yogging. I'm gonna go for yog.
Yeah.
He liked the French, right? So he'd be jogging.
Yeah, part of the banter, kind of the opposite end of Matt's sharing. I was at the gym a couple of weeks ago and was just wondering along this line of like athletic energy expended towards sport on a purely utilitarian view, like how many how much energy do we spend on just hobbyist sport versus then what we trade off for cars and fuel and food production and
Sure.
rewinding the clock back 150 years. I think most of this conversation in sport in general is like a new thing relatively, and is a much larger proportion of human thought and time spent than 150 years ago. And it comes from the Wendell-Berry, Wendell-Berry ideology of really honing in on like specialization. And like when you did work on the farm, like you had to expend your physical capacity in a day alongside family, friends, neighbors. And what modernity is, if anything, is just the specialization and the segmentation ad infinitum of, you only earn your living on this like one tiny specific piece of the puzzle. And what we've traded for that wage, for that piece of paper, monetary value, digits in our bank account, for that specific cog that we contribute to the system, is the general ability to be like a fully utilized human, physical, mental, spiritual, and like the daily productivity of how we live. And so if Wendell-Berry is about anything, I think he's pinned in as like the agriculture, food, organic writer, but it is actually the theme that always comes up more than that is the one I just mentioned. It's just like we've traded off for an economic system a lot more than maybe we understand or have bargained for in this specialization. And he really, if you would rewind to our grandparents and if you said, hey, you could live in 2020 and have like all these things. I'm like, our grandparents used outhouses. I think my oldest aunt grew up until age 5, had an outhouse, right? So if you could trade all these luxuries, I think they would 100% take our place. Like we do live in an abundance that is obviously awesome. I lost the point though.
So I think they kind of trade. Yeah. I mean it's this kind of you didn't know you were trading things in because what you used to. I mean, let's say you had physical activity because you're working in the field. You also had socialization because you're helping your neighbors build their barn and they're helping you build yours. You get some sort of camaraderie in that and perhaps some like depth and friendship and, some moral checking yourself before you do something stupid, because you have these people who count on you. But now we do our widget thing at work, specialized thing at work. Then we go to the gym to get our exercise. And then we go to a specific social event to get to interact with only the people we want.
Right.
And then we go to a counselor because we've lost our moral way. We have no tethering to anything. So it's like all of you just kind of took what used to be life and you broke it up into these really specialized chunks. So it's and in some ways that might be better. In some ways, like it's kind of just weird and sterile or professionalized or commercialized. And perhaps like less attractive in some ways.
But to tie that back into the absurdity, I think in this, I think sport has replaced some of that just pure farm labor drudgery that 90% of people had to do. And we still need an outlet for that, and a healthy outlet. And I think that it serves it has its place and is well designed, but acknowledging the continuum of some of the luxuries we have is an important reflection.
Yeah, and I mean, one way to think like hyper-specific activity is unattractive for a lot of reasons. Like it's kind of vain, like the calorie counters on the gym thing that you mentioned, and I mean, it's kind of alienated from life, right? You're kind of isolating yourself in this gym where you may tend towards this sort of navel gazing about, your physique or your even your performance goals. You can might sound a little bit more noble, but still somewhat selfish. And if you, depending on what degree you put towards it, and just kind of over commercialized in a lot of ways. But then, like, if you're to go the opposite end, purely utilitarian activity, I think just gets unattractive because it's boring. It's sometimes commercially preyed upon, right? Yeah, so commercialization in a different thing. If you have your, labor driver person, pushing you. But I guess more broadly, like maybe what we're shooting for is just truly meaningful leisure time activity, right? That's kind of like the broadest, but I think most succinct way of describing like what is it that we're looking for. And you could get that in your Wendell Berry kind of farming mindset. I mean, it would include like building a cathedral, playing golf with your friends, jogging in the half marathon you're going to do in the next few weeks, Ross. Dancing, gardening, walking in the woods with your family, like all of that is like meaningful physical activity. And I think maybe absurd, there's varying degrees of absurdity with some of those things. But yeah, like I think we all realize like those are more meaningful than just like your chores, like doing the dishes, hyper specialized exercises, right? Like doing a bicep curl machine, like, or riding a treadmill, which is a walk to nowhere, right? A stationary bike ride to nowhere, I think we all kind of recognize like, yeah, these are kind of weird, sterile, boring things. And it's like, no wonder if that's what exercise is, like, no wonder no one does it. But I feel like you can get somewhere if you're running, literally and figuratively, I think, when you have this sort of more human endeavor, and especially when others are involved.
I think, I don't know, I feel like we kind of talked about hobbies kind of broadly, but I feel like, and maybe I missed what you guys were saying too much, but it seems like the absurdity, like I think running, in some ways it's like specific to running because like, I mean, to draw a little bit out like what you guys were saying, I mean, I think a lot of times, like when you kind of said the segmented, like you could argue like the Wendellberry farming or like the segmented, like all the specialization stuff, like everything, like it almost, it seems to be, I have to do something for a reason because I have to have some sort of outcome or purpose for it. And I don't know, I feel like people just don't want to be like, we recognize that we are more than just something we can do or produce. So like, I think in some ways it's just really good to do something sometimes that like, in some ways you could almost argue waste of time, I guess. But I feel like, I don't know, it seems like even like Landon, like you said, like the modern sports like fill that niche. Like it's still, you still have like a purpose or a point. And I don't know, it just seems like maybe it does draw out to other sports as well. But I feel like in some ways it seems more specific to just running for the sake of running. And even like, I mean, like Pre's arguments in the movie, like he wasn't even concerned with getting the fastest time necessarily. He was more concerned about like how he ran. I don't know. Maybe I just don't have my head wrapped all the way around it yet, but it just seems kind of unique to that. Like everything I would have done at a football or baseball game, if it wasn't geared towards winning, I just don't see how it would have been helpful. But like, I mean, at least in Pre's case, it seems like just running as fast as you can, even knowing that I might take seconds longer because I don't run this certain specialized way. Like to him, that was still very valuable. So I don't know. It just seems kind of unique.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some ways to thread in our family's experiences with running and some of the things that y'all are talking about here. I think that there is something that is, I think, good and inherently virtuous about the various degrees of, like, I guess you could say, dreaminess of different hobbies. Um and I would argue paramount dreaminess of running and climbing. I remember growing up taking taking a lot of pride in not just my dad's running, but also like his physical strength. I think I've talked about it with you guys before, but if you didn't podcast it, it ain't real. Am I right? And to this day, at almost age 73, every morning or most mornings, does this routine of push-ups and crunches and other adjacent exercises in order to maintain and build this suite of strength, right? Yeah, and I always took a lot of pride in that. And then, okay, so that's sort of like its own thing, building up strength as a parent so that your children will be proud of you. Like, I think any good child wants their parent to be physically, well, they want to be strong a lot of different ways, but in this case, physically strong. And then the other aspect of it, right, in my monologue, I referenced running being a family affair. But what's interesting is, like, we've never run together a whole lot, like literally shoulder to shoulder. And now I mention it, like, I'm sort of regretting. Like, no, maybe should have done. Like, I mean, but yeah, maybe the most with my dad and brother, and almost never with my sister. We obviously go to the same races now 2-3 times a year. But everyone's there to do their absolute best. And of course, you're not going to do your best if you're starting off at X pace when you should be running Y pace. Yeah, no, just the point is just the idea of the shared there's a lot of different dimensions to it, but just the shared pursuit of doing your best, which I think has a lot of real parallels to the Judeo-Christian spiritual life, where you're doing two different things. You're looking forward so that you yourself can be certain of the trueness of the path that you're walking down. But then also at times you're looking to your left and right and ensuring that, the people you care about and love are on the right path as well. And there's no magical calculus to how you do that, but it is a back and forth sort of process to that. And so I think that does tie in well, to Matt. You can dial in a little bit more, but your essay, the exercise of solipsism, of just having that dual component of community and performance. And I think those two things sort of synergistically working together is sort of the test of the trueness of the thing.
Just tell me what you guys think of this. I feel like we're just like hovering on the surface of this and just can't get our teeth into it. Maybe you guys are just blown away more than me. I just feel like we're not getting into it much.
Because you're not a runner, Ross.
Well, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but
you're only running 200 meters.
All right, sink in, Ross. You want to sink? You're going to take a bite out of something.
I'm going to do two things. So, and and I'm not saying this like, so one, like, I feel like on one side, someone could just say, like, I don't have to, like, all of that's great. Like, I don't need to run. Like, we fixed it. I don't have to work outside anymore. Everything's like there. Um, my job does not require me to be overly fit. Like, with modern medicine, I'll still probably outlive the best runners from 40 years ago as far as like length of life. I might never in my life actually have a situation where I have to run, not even a mile. I mean, 100 yards. Like, it just like, it literally might never happen.
Sure.
So, like, and I'm not, I'm not even selling the like, I'm going to just eat whatever I want and become 700 pounds and like all that. But just like, why should I care? I feel like nothing has really like caught me yet and said like, yeah, this is a thing you should do.
So another way of,
yeah, I mean, I've got,
go ahead.
Just like, I don't know, like, I don't like, we don't have to sell each other, but like, and not that I'm saying like, I'm actually trying to become fat and unhealthy, but just like,
sure.
I think if we could answer that question, it would like,
yeah,
clearly. And like, that seems like it would just like kind of solve this, like the absurdity part. Like, why is that important?
Well, I mean, I think I can be as brief as I need to be just by revisiting something from my monologue, right? You know, it's, yeah, and this is a nice distinction between the usefulness of an absurd pastime and the usefulness of an absurd pastime that is running, or just something that's really strenuous, right? To Mel, running felt wild, dangerous, and uncomfortable compared to so much of the rest of 1980s America that seemed to spend most of his time waiting fast food drive-through lines and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I think that's right, is that when you do hard things, and what is harder than tearing off all of the other layers of every other sport, right, to have these technicalities and strategy, like the paragraph described before that, right? So that the only thing you have left to assess the worthiness of your performance is how fast you ran, or even more relentless, according to Pre, how hard you ran. And, you know, I think it's like, how do you communicate the validity of that truth? I mean, I think, you know, listening to Matt Fradd, today he was talking, today's the most recent episode, he was talking about this, and I think I align with this way of thinking pretty closely. It's just how do you, what's like the physics, how would you describe the physics of proof? I think it sort of varies person to person of how they're disposed, but I think Matt Fradd and I would say something like, and I don't know, maybe I'm just off the wall here or something, but it's like, it's something within the vein of phenomenology. It's like where it's sort, you know, it seems to be, is like, if you see something and it demonstrates, it has this natural demonstration of goodness, and it has this natural demonstration of orienting you towards a particular good, then you go with that, unless there is some sort of undeniable proof that would seem to indicate otherwise. To connect that with I was just describing with this quote from the story, and what I'm trying to say here is that the only way to really realize the truth that doing really hard things, and really singularly and raw and simple hard things, the truth it reveals to you about yourself and about life in general, is by like doing that hard thing. is by doing the half marathon. Go into those absolute edges and do what it absolutely takes to be on in that moment, even if it, no one cares whether you're on a 157 half marathon or 119 half marathon. The point is that you went to the absolute edge in that moment.
Is there a particular point on either running or serious physical exertion?
Yeah, like why physical?
I think that trying to tie back in what I've heard everybody say, I think that there is a value, a holiness, an aesthetical need to physically exert yourself, given we no longer have to sustain ourselves or our family. It now must be supplemented artificially.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there is a loss of perhaps something spiritual.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're getting at is like we're embodied souls,
Right. Yeah.
right? And you can't unbody your soul until you die. So it's like you either work with your embodied soul or you're like it's almost like you're willing death itself in some way. I mean, that's a little extreme, but like, yeah, I mean, you're just totally ignoring your physicality, and you're leaving that part of yourself unexplored. It's like if I never read a book for the rest of my life, like I'm leaving this intellectual aspect of myself totally unexplored. If I never made a friend the rest of my life, there's this like social and relational aspect of myself that's going unexplored. Like I feel like there's a handful of dimensions that are just very fundamental to our existence as human beings, and like physicality is one of them. And I think that is why people are sick. And an interesting maybe like phenomena. So like if you look at so tons of research looking at physical activity and longevity, it's like, oh great, yeah, physical activity is really, really good for you. But they've also looked at physical activity relating to your job, right? So like construction workers, nurses, people who are on their feet, walking, moving around all day, but it's for their work. And they do not at all reap the same benefits. In fact, most studies looking at occupational physical activity as opposed to leisure time physical activity show the opposite effect. That occupational leisure time activity seems to have an inverse relationship. Like it undoes the benefits or has opposite effect, like worse cardiovascular health, worse all-cause mortality, like all these things get worse. And I think there is something meaningful, or there's some way that like meaning is lost in occupation, especially when you're in a modern world where everything's very alienated and like you don't see the end product, right? Like your construction worker might work on one small thing and like never actually see the thing done,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or someone who works in a Caterpillar factory like just loads these things into boxes all day and never actually gets to see an excavator work. Like you don't get that satisfaction, but you're just breaking down your body over and over in a way that's not really measured. That way there's pressure, there's stress, it's like, that's a totally different phenomena, Mike, to use phenomenology, right? Than running, where there are some technical benefits to that, where it's like, yep, you can run a little faster, run a little slower. You can be measured with it, right? But I feel like the fact that your soul is invested in something, I think makes a big difference, right? So the Wendell Berry era or style of like physical activity, like those folks are invested in it, like they're doing it for their family, for their neighbors, they're contemplating nature, right? There's all these like positive things for our soul that's going on while they're doing that physical activity. Whereas, I mean, if you're just like working in a factory, I could see that being really rough on you. And now you have this negative experience with physicality that's, that just kind of like wears you down as opposed to builds you up. So maybe that's like the fundamental thing is like, what's our relationship with our physicality? And like, how do you improve that relationship, you know? And I think just like life-giving activity, whatever it is, like whether it's running or lifting a rock in your garage or dancing or whatever, you know, it's like, that's like how you do it. That's going to build you up. And that's, you know, I think running, I see what you're saying, Mike, and that running, I think has like sort of uniquely primal and raw thing, you know, that, I think has some unique perks to it. But yeah, I guess, Ross, to answer the question, why do you do anything physical at all? It's like, because that's how you're made. Like, like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have I mean, physical outcomes, of like longevity or whatever, even like, I don't know, like I can get to heaven if I'm fat and have diabetes and heart disease, you know? But I feel like running will just help you get to heaven, period, you know, or insert whatever activity, you know? I don't know.
We're ready for final bell. Ross, do you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, did you have I know you said you had another angle.
Well, that was, I don't know. That was honestly just, I felt, and maybe I was just missing it. I just felt like we were just, we just couldn't get there. So, I mean, I don't actually think that, but I was like, I feel like we need an instigator.
That was
to,
a good prompt.
Make us put some teeth into that.
Yeah.
My other thought, which I feel like is too similar, so I think we should go back to, I don't think we should final bell yet. I think we need to get back to something on Mike's outline. But my other thought was then, so I actually had a conversation with someone recently, and I was kind of pitching a little bit of kind of Matt's type of thing, / a little bit of like move Nat, like fitness for function, like why do I need to be healthy? And they had a little bit of pushback in the sense of like, I feel like they were having a hard time, like, I feel it goes maybe like a modern person, like, but if I get married and have kids and whatnot, like I can't become the best version of myself, you know, like if I'm supposed to take good care of my body and like doing hard things is good for me, like my half, you know, I can't run as fast as a half marathon or get as low in golf or lift as much weight if I'm constantly having all these, you know, if I have a bunch of kids and all those type of things. So, I feel like it's kind of I was kind of using the two types, like questions, to kind of try to balance and find the middle.
Yeah.
I just picked one. But
did you tell him to man the hell up?
Yeah. I said to get married and have some, kids. But, yeah, they were, cause I do feel like, I don't know, like you kind of commented, like we aren't like in some ways, like our health is really bad, but in some ways there's like more obsession with health and fitness than there's ever been, you know? So it's like, you can picture the 58-year-old with diabetes, but you can also picture the 32-year-old that like won't get married and have kids, you know, because whatever, you know, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, or you're the gym junkies and that type of thing. And, you know, become the best version of yourself, but it doesn't actually embrace any sort of actual responsibility, you know? So I feel like there's just as much negative on that side, but kind of wanted to throw myself under the bus a little bit as the fat guy. So I picked the first question.
I feel like our last discussion before the bell should be something to do with like Nike and brands and sport and Bowerman's legacy there and how it got there. Refill on drinks, potty break. Think about a way to phrase that question.
All right.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about Bowerman and sort of the adjacent thoughts of the running culture around him that has certain effects on us. But of course, he was not just the coach of the Oregon Ducks distance team, but he was also the co-founder of Nike with Phil Knight. He started Nike. He was sort of Phil Knight was more of the marketer, the visionary. Bill Bowerman, you might say, was more of like the engineer behind things. But I mean, yeah, engineer, but also the ethos, as we've been discussing there. Famously formed made track spikes for his runners, but also as far as Nike goes, what's what I'm looking for? Innovated the waffle iron bottomed running shoes by melting, I don't know what's the right name for the composite, polyurethane onto waffle irons, cutting it out in the shape of a sole, slapping it onto the bottom of running shoes, which also sadly likely resulted in his somewhat early death, early 80s, from the fumes, having some strokes there. Nike is, of course, a very fashionable brand, but also has some dark aspects of its existence, most famously, particularly in the running world, regarding a gentleman named Alberto Salazar, who did run at Oregon. He was a few years after Bowerman, not too many years after, but infamously included some kind of blood doping. This isn't just like conspiracy theory. This is pretty well established. Blood doping for his small distance running crew.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
And yeah,
blood doping. So like harvesting
14-year-olds'
blood to be a younger, more.
Well, I mean, you know what the definition of blood doping is?
Sorry.
Okay, no.
Yeah, you remove your own blood, your body makes blood, and then you add more of your blood, so you've got extra oxygen or something, right? Something like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And yeah, so he's been like excommunicated from distance running.
It's because he harvested so many 14-year-olds' blood.
No, that's another thing. That's like a tech thing. It's a joke, but it's real.
Okay.
One of your conspiracy
No.
theories
Look up Brian.
Landon, our alt-right.
Look up Brian Johnson. I think he has a son. He's like the guy who's spending all of his millions of dollars to like age.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
So it was like a joke on the alt tech right to like take your 18-year-old intern's blood and run it through you and it'll make you younger. But then he's actually doing it with his son. So it's.
Yeah, I heard it on NPR. No, that's true.
Right.
That's true and sad. Yeah, and then also just more generally, things that are more intuitive. Yeah, just the obsession with brands, the obsession with commercialization of sport. Anything else to say about that? What would Bowerman have to say about that as being half of the harbinger of that legacy? Is there any good that your Nike, your Adidas, your Saucony brands do today in the developing of young athletes, or is it all bad? Sort of broad question. See if we find something good there. What's your memory of brands growing up? What were the shoes you had to get? Air Jordans. We could never afford them.
This is not Final Bell. We're still rambling.
No, this is a pre-bell.
Pre.
Good one, Mike. Are you guys
I
like
feel
brand?
like
Oh,
what
go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I mean, like you said, what brands were like Under Armour was really cool when I was in high school. I feel like
that was
Under
a cool
Armour was
thing.
like they didn't just have like they had like the cold weather gear. They had shoes and shirts and everything. What comes to mind, and this isn't a personal experience, but I think it might answer the question. I feel like my first thought is just kind of a negative connotation of the branding in general, and I'm thinking of the movie Friday Night Lights.
Mm.
So Bowie Miles has his black Nikes, right? I think that's what they are. And like he kind of, and he doesn't make fun of the other kid too bad, but like disparages another kid, a player on the team for not having the cool shoes, and then you got this kid trying to take a black Sharpie to his white shoes so that he has like black Nikes, because it clearly like it bothered him that he didn't have the cool shoes. So my first thought when you asked about branding in general, that's kind of where my mind goes, at least, is that, it's about sports. I feel like it moves away from the you run hard and moves into the you run to win category. And people want to fit in and outdo each other and losing sight of maybe all the positives of um, the whole running hard mentality. But yeah, that's where my mind went.
I wrote down the very first part of your question, which was what is running culture, or the culture that Nike created in this petri dish that has maybe been megaphoned around the world in various ways. And so I think about culture definitionally more than I should probably. But I think one of the requirements of culture is that whatever it is, it has to be a thing that has been perpetuated or practiced for at least 3 generations. So unless it has not been done repeatedly for 3 generations, it's not even culture. And so that's point 1. Point 2 is, in reading the book Shoe Dog, the Oregon boys, the Bowerman, Phil Knight, his CFO buddy, they're creating their pitch deck. They don't make that much money. Like, they spend so much on manufacturing the shoes. It takes marketing. Like, they're always really tight on finances, oddly, or even in the first years of being public. So they're going on their IPO roadshow in the 70s, which is like present to investors with money, have a dinner. You got to like wow them. And they came up with a little line to constantly repeat and reiterate in those investor meetings, to like tie an ethos to Nike and the opportunity, and like, who are these Oregon boys who shouldn't be running a public company. And the line they kept repeating over and over and over: the cowards never started west. The weak died along the way. That leaves us men. We're Oregon men. We're the founders of Nike. The cowards never started west. The weak died along the way. We are the progeny of the people who took the risks, who made it, who never gave up. And I think it's a longer version of just do it. But a sort of really a byproduct of the culture of the Oregon Trail that may exist in Nike, and like perhaps American sport culture is via this line that they said, an offshoot of just that Oregon Trail, head west, young man. Beach.
I think there's a commercial there that's they haven't done. Needs to leverage that quote.
Yeah. I
mean, really.
So I was at one point a Nike loyalist, and truly, I don't know where that came from. Like, I don't have a specific memory of like, oh, all the cool kids had Nike, because like, I mean, like Ross, I think Under Armour was probably more the like cool emerging thing. In high school, at least, when that would kind of be peer pressure would be at its peak. But yeah, I don't know. For some reason, I always had this like Nike loyalty for a decent while. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't have a ton to say. I mean, I suppose it seems maybe counter to certain aspects of how Bowerman at least was presented in the movie. And Mike and Landon, you guys probably have a better idea of how Bowerman's presented overall, but maybe it seems somewhat contrary to some of those principles. But I don't know. I mean, it's about performance, and that was something Bowerman was about too. You know, there's nothing wrong with trying to aim toward that. But yeah, certainly, I don't know. I don't know if Nike's that much better than Adidas versus Saucony or whatever other shoe brands are out there now. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't have a serious problem with that. I mean, I just kind of, maybe that's just, I'm too accepting of, that's the world we live in. And we just kind of have to deal with some of the frustrating aspects of it. But yeah, I mean, you can still wear Nike shoes and still like exercise and do things in a way that is more life-giving and wholesome. You know, it doesn't force you to be more commercial and isolated and, you know, solipsistic with how you run or exercise, you know.
I'm thinking of the movie Air. Did you guys all watch Air?
Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
I've not seen it, no.
I liked it, yeah. Nope. I liked it.
It was good. Yeah, it was good. You know, and so, you know, that's obviously dealing with Michael Jordan and Nike taking him on as, you know, their first major potentially, and who obviously did become a world-renowned client. And I think as I like think through listening as you guys talk, it makes me a little bit more sympathetic to Nike, right? Because, you know, in the film, Phil Knight, right? I think Matt Damon, right, plays Phil Knight.
Affleck plays Knight.
I mean, this is Knight. Oh, Affleck. Okay. Yeah. This is 1984. So this is 10 years after the real beginning of Blue Ribbon Sports, Nike. And they were still just scratching and clawing for money and you know, ownership in the shoe market. And they scratched and clawed, and they're all the way to Michael Jordan, and the rest is, of course, history. And I think that just framing that transition in that way, I think creates a certain sympathy in the sense of they were either about to just fade into oblivion like Converse, or they were going to become, you know, one of the most significant brands in the world. And so it's like, are they the cause of, you know, commercialization and the obvious sins that come with that, or are they just drinking the poison with the rest of us? I say that not necessarily answer, because we can just, you know, chicken or egg our way all day. But I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily have anywhere else special to go with that other than just casting certain ideas into the light. Here's maybe my come way. Like, yeah, what could brands clearly like have influence One can obviously argue the rightness of certain perspectives some of them share regarding different social justice things. And yeah, they have influence in those areas. And so are there ways they can position their brands that would facilitate less branding, if that makes sense, as Ross Johnson would say, or producing different shoe models. Like, it's okay that a kid wants a Nike, but do they need to spend $170 on a shoe, or can we just give them a good shoe experience and enjoy wearing Nikes for $80, right? Yeah. Sounds like we're all okay with Nike running the world.
I don't know. I think it's generational.
Fun.
I think each generation defines their own, while some of those brands have lasted a lot longer. They weren't at their peak. Converse has been around. I mean, Nike owns Converse. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Oh, do they?
I didn't know they bought them.
Like a long time.
I was looking up. So Nike,
a decade ago.
Yeah, because Nike's only been around 50 years, but Adidas started in 1924, so they have like 100 years. Reebok was
crazy.
1958, but really seemed to hit the scene in 79. Converse was started in 1908. New Balance 1906. Puma was 1948. And some of these have like maybe it's not like a clear founding date like this. The same, they might have like split off a little, these are approximate dates, I guess. Some people may argue with exactly, but yeah, it's interesting how long some of them have been around. But yeah.
Okay. Final.
Just interesting. I mean, you mentioned like the $170 shoe versus the $80 shoe. Like, I don't know. Just thinking. Like, what's the pair of Air Jordans cost?
Couple hundred.
Yeah, I was
really?
going to say 220, something like that.
Oh gosh, okay, that's more than I realized. Okay, but I'm assuming Nike's also selling $70 shoes, right?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't realize Air Jordans that much money. Never
mind. Just some fun, man. You got Air Jordan 1s. I see one going for $125. They're giving them away these days. There's one.
They're actually getting $125 for them.
I recognize that. Man, only 153 for his final season Jordans. Why do these all look old? 170 for his 95, 96 Jordans. Should start a black market for Air Jordans. I don't know why I'm getting all these deals.
I know you're like half joking, but maybe this would just be fun. Like, I honestly don't understand that at all. Like,
don't understand what?
When you say only, and then you say the number you said, I hear the number and think that's the stupidest thing I've heard today. Like, why would someone pay that much money for a pair of shoes?
So they're Jordans.
And but I don't get it. Like earlier, I need to ask a pointed question to.
Why don't you just keep wearing your North Face jacket that's made in 2007?
Basketball shoes are weird these days, They just got kind of weird. Like, I don't know. Anyway, it's the end of that thought.
Anyway, that reminds me of the way. That reminds me of weird. That reminds me of the way to the final bell. Final bell.
Ding, 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 ding.
All your strength, all your power, all your love.
Verizon.
15. One more round. There's no stopping this now. This is our round. Don't stop it now. We're starting. We don't stop. All your strength, all your power, all your love, everything you've got. This is all life here. Do it now. Now.
Oh, and we're back. What is even our final bell? What is final? What is bell? Bell.
What's
I
the
feel like
most
we
you
need
guys
to make
ever
it
paid
quick.
for a
We've
pair
been
of
pretty,
shoes?
we've been pretty lengthy. Yeah, we've gone pretty long. Let's make it a quick one.
Okay.
Most you've ever paid for a pair of shoes?
Interesting.
Okay, let's hold that in our back pocket for
$754 for those Air Jordan 27s.
Okay, keep that in our back pocket. Maybe let's think of something like your children and sport and brands and running.
I want Thomas to run more so he's in better shape. He literally said, this is funny. He literally said today, we asked him because they're doing soccer. Like soccer signups are coming out in his class. Like he played soccer last year. He's like, no, my legs get tired. That's what he said. And I told him, I said, Thomas, if that's the only reason you don't want to do it, I'm going to force you to do it. How do we teach our kids to run hard?
We could say something about like three, just about like Bowerman as a coach, like three things you would like you're a coach of a cross country team, right? Let's just say a middle school cross country team. We feel like that's like an attainable level of coaching for all of us, right? Local school just needs a middle school coach. Okay. What three things, 3 words, 3-word response, has to be quick, are you going to keep as like your focal point, your center, that are going to center your coaching style for middle school cross country name?
Okay, I'll go with that. Well, we've already introduced Final Bell, so okay, Final Bell. Bowerman didn't use too many words to build up his runners before their respective cross-country and track seasons, but we're going to use even fewer. What's the 3 words that are going to inform your hypothetical cross-country middle grade runners before they embark on their pursuit of the Belleville Diocesan Championship, or Springfield Diocesan Championship, or Peoria Diocesan Championship, or the Interdenominational Diocesan Championship? You guys probably just give ribbons to everyone.
That's funny.
Tougher, uglier, meaner.
Nice.
We actually, my 30-second clip, we actually used that in high school because it was like our intentional rebuke of bigger, faster, stronger.
Oh, interesting. I like that.
It's like the other team is bigger than us, they're faster than us, they're stronger than us, but we're tougher, we're uglier, we're meaner.
Nice.
Tom.
And shorter, probably.
Good one.
Yeah.
So those are the words you're giving to your team. Is that what you're saying, Ross? Like these aren't the words you're personally centering yourself. These are like, all right, these are the team. This is the team ethos. Ugly or mean here.
You could take it any way you want.
Okay.
I actually had a wristband of quotes. I'll just share this really quick. For high school football, we talked about speeches. Like I actually had, like those, like the arm cover, like wristbands that like are like for plays that the players will have. I wore one of those and it was literally full of quotes. That's all it was. It was probably, it might have been 15 of them. So there you go. I liked quotes.
I'm going to go resilience. Resilience, character, and I don't know.
Solipsism.
Good one. No, we'll go resilience, character, and friendship. Let's do that. Things I'm going to foster on the team.
Resilience is definitely one of mine. Resilience, I feel like there needs to be some element of fear or awe. I don't think I have the right word there. And
these are middle schoolers.
I know. Which
is like, you don't want them to fear.
Well, I think there should be
like high school. Okay, fear for sure.
Should be an allusion to some sort of mystery or an ethos of superiority. Like, even I'm just taking, starting where we began, going back to that first day of cross-country practice with this Jimmy Newell person. It's like, he's not a teacher. He's the janitor. I've heard he's been in the Navy for 20 years. Like, this is going to be tough, or I don't know, like an element of respect that it is resilience, respect, and those are the two.
Instead of friendship, I'm going to change mine to brotherhood.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just thought that's a better word. Brotherhood.
I came up with 2 words: resilience and respect. Go ahead, Mike. Round us out.
Yeah, because with running, it's like it can't just be raw tenaciousness. You gotta know how to ration it out. In the case of a 3-mile race, over.
Did you not watch the movie?
Are you chicken?
What are you even saying? Pre's sitting there like, I'm gonna run as hard as I can the whole time.
You're gonna get tougher, uglier, and meaner.
Bowerman's like, oh, pace it out. You ran too fast early. He gets to the funeral and he's like, no, yeah, Pre was right. Mike's takeaway is finesse it. Hold back. What are you? You did it. I've seen this 100 times. It didn't even resonate.
And make sure you're wearing Nikes while you do it.
Just hold back.
Just hold back. Oh, man. This is good.
Well, it's been great, but there are starts of other somethings. Matt, what we got next time? The speech from the founder of Adidas. Well, until next time, thanks for drinking
and thinking.
What if I just say until next time, and then someone says thanks for drinking, and then everyone has a turn.
The whole point is we try to figure it out every single time. That's like the shtick.
Yeah, I think that's,
I don't know. I don't know if it doesn't play well. The problem is
63.
The problem is the people who aren't as committed, which is everyone here.
All right. Can we do it?
Literally 4 lines that we could assign and we never have. Thanks for thinking and drinking with us. Be safe out there.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Well, I had 2 of the lines.
Can you say that you get it started and then we'll just go the order that we actually podcast? Like, do we pick the speeches?
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
So I'll say thanks for drinking. Yeah.
And thinking.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Go ahead.
Well, it's been real. Thanks for drinking. No, I'm sorry.
That's my job.
It's been real. Until next time.
Sorry. It's been real. You never say that.
Because I have to let you know that it's coming. So we have to have a line before the line to so you know that the line's coming. Well, it's been real.
Until next time. That's what you say now.
Until next time.
Thanks for drinking.
And thinking.
Hey, be safe out there.
Dead ends come and go. Look toward the horizon. Up ahead you'll find a peace of mind, relief from the trying. I have burned a bridge, wrecked in a ditch, had to ask forgiveness. Dead ends come and go. Look toward the horizon. Oh, there are stories to tell. The times we grew and the times we fell. Oh, I've been afraid some days, but the road will lead us to a better place. Road will lead us to a better place.
Oh, okay. Are you there?
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
You
okay,
can-
great.
Okay. We have my dad making a special guest appearance for this post-credit scene. He's going to be reading an essay he wrote entitled "The Spirit of Running," which captures his memories of the family growing up and the effect running had on that and his own running. Take it away, Dad.
Thank you, Michael. Here's a story that I wrote. Actually, it's condensed from from the original writing into one page for the sake of time. One evening in 1996, my wife and I's oldest daughter, Lauren, came home from high school and talked about the Alton Great River Road Run, 10 miles out and 10 miles back, besides the Mississippi River, on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. She just finished her junior cross-country season and was looking for new ways to challenge herself. Of course, I said yes, but the race was in 50 days with an international work trip ahead of me. I began my training with stationary running in my hotel room. Ha ha. On Thanksgiving Saturday, the whole family attended its first of many road races. Jean, Michael, and Dan cheering us on. In the cold, gray, wet weather, Lauren finished a 10-miler and joined the others anxiously awaiting my arrival. I finished, and the reward for all were glazed donuts from the race organizers. After Alton, the family racing fever continued with what were called frostbite runs in Forest Park in St. Louis, Missouri, a popular St. Patrick's Day 5-mile downtown, smaller 5Ks, and of course, cross-country and track seasons for each of the three kids once Danny and Michael entered high school. After running, an acronym came out of our many experiences, with variations from the original quotes of running movies like Prefontaine and Without Limits, quoting lines like, "He can't outrun him, so he sprints the last 500 yards to win the race," and "Now we shall see," from Coach Bowerman. 3 days before the race, we would say, "Time to store the hay in the barn." I've often been heard saying, "If you aren't ready to drop at the end of the race, you have not done your best," meaning you still have fuel left in the tank because you have not pushed yourself hard enough. Once Lauren was married, she remained active, running the St. Jude Memphis race. Shortly after having Luke, we all ran the race. Baby Luke had a sleeping challenge, and the night before the race was sleepless for Lauren. But she still ran and finished strong in the half marathon. The St. Jude race has been a tradition for us for almost 20 years now. Today, Lauren runs regularly around Freeburg Village Park, along with a few select races. More recently, the Thanksgiving 5K, where Lauren, Luke, Sam, Grace, and Joe and I participate. Mike continues to be an astounding front runner. He runs the Go St. Louis Marathon Relay with friends, placing first for the group. Danny has now become an ultra-distant runner, doing 50 miles or more in a single race. Very impressive, to say the least, with endless energy and the loving support of his family cheering for his success. Jean is always there for us, either walking the race, holding coats, shoes, watching kids, taking pictures, and of course, cheering us on. Michael, Lauren, and Danny continue to inspire Dad with invitations to run with their families and friends, doing biathlons, and this year joining Oates' team to run a 80-mile river-to-river relay between the Ohio and Mississippi River at the end of April. Danny and I shared time running the Castle 15K trail run in February. It's an awesome race with many challenges, steep hills, tree roots to trip over, and a great barbecue to enjoy at the end of the race as a finale with friendly camaraderie. So glad our family enjoys running. It provides me the drive to continue to be competitive as a senior runner in my 70s. Thank you, kids. Oprah Winfrey once said, running is the greatest metaphor for life because you get out of it what you put into it. It's all about the journey. So that's it, Michael.
That was great.